There's a reason why so many people end up losing money on Google Ads. It's because Google sets traps which are designed to catch out new or inexperienced advertisers. And if you fall into one of those traps, you're going to end up putting a lot more money into Google's pockets than you actually need to. My name's David Miles and I help mortgage brokers and financial advisors to use Google Ads cost effectively. And so in this video, I'm going to show you what the most common Google Ads traps are and teach you how to avoid them. Okay, so just before we get started, if you find this kind of content useful, please do me a favour, give this video a thumbs up, click subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so you're always the first to know when I release new content like this. Right, let's head over to the Google Ads screen and get started. So here I am in a demo Google Ads account, and the very first one of these traps that you can fall into happens as soon as you start creating a brand new Google Ads campaign. So let me do that and show you what the problem is. So once you've clicked new campaign, the very first thing Google's going to do is ask you what the goal of your campaign is, and it gives you a number of choices here. And of course it's very tempting to just pick one of these. You know, if you're an e-commerce store, for example, you might think, well, I want sales, so I'll pick this option here. If you're like most of the people I work with, mortgage brokers, IFAs, other service businesses like that, you're going to think, well, I want leads, so you'll pick the leads option here. But the problem is that if you pick any of these preset options, Google will apply a load of default settings to your campaign which aren't necessarily going to be in your best interest and are going to remove some of the control that you might otherwise have over how your ads operate and who sees them. And once you've applied those settings, you can't necessarily undo or change them. So the thing you need to do to avoid falling into trap number one is to select this option here, create a campaign without a goals guidance. And then you can go on and select the type of campaign you want, which for the majority of people is going to be a search campaign. Now once you've done that and click through to the next screen, you're going to be asked a load of questions about your budget and your bidding. And the second trap that you need to avoid falling into is this one here around the bidding options, because by default Google is going to set because by default Google is going to use an automated bid strategy. So you can see here it's defaulted to using maximize clicks. You might find it also as an alternative defaults to maximize conversions is a very common one that will default to. And the problem with these automated bidding strategies is you're not in control of what the maximum is that you're going to spend per click. That's one problem with it. And the second problem is that you're asking Google to do automated bidding when it doesn't have any data on which to base its decisions. If you're using a brand new campaign like this, there's no past data. Google doesn't know what a click ought to cost for you. It doesn't know what a conversion is worth to you. So it doesn't have the parameters it needs to be able to effectively do that automated bidding. So the thing you need to do to avoid this is to, first of all, down here, select a bid strategy directly. And then that will give you the option in the drop-down list here to select manual CPC, manual cost per click bidding, which if you set that, that's where you will then be able to set your own maximum cost per click for each of your ad groups or even each of your individual keywords if you want. And then on the next screen, we come to the third trap that Google sets, which is this one here about networks, because we said we wanted a search network campaign. And yet despite that, Google has by default ticked this box here to say that it's also going to show our ads on the Google Display Network. And the Google Display Network is a totally different type of advertising where you're going to get a lot more clicks, a lower cost per click, but the quality of those clicks is going to be much lower as well. So if you're going to do display network advertising, you need to do that in a separate campaign with its own budget so you can see the data separately and control things separately as well. So you need to untick the Google Display Network box. You then on the next screen get to set what your default bid is in the box up here, and you'll be able to put in your keywords, and I'll just put in one keyword just for an example because I want to get straight onto the next bit of the page, which is where we see the fourth trap that Google sets, and that is that they default you to creating a kind of ad called a responsive search ad. Now, a responsive search ad is something that Google introduced a few years ago, and they've been pushing them more and more over the last couple of years to the point where, as you can see, they are now the default kind of ad, but they're not necessarily the best. The way that a responsive ad works is, as you can see here, you get to put in a whole choice of different headlines, up to 15 of them, and a range of different descriptions, up to 4 of them. And then what Google will do is it will take those, and every time your ad appears, it will do a sort of mix and match of those different headlines and descriptions, and it will show different combinations and test out which ones work best and everything. Now, you might think that that's a good thing, having responsive ads, because then Google's automating the testing and everything like that. But the problem with it is that you don't then have control over what your ad is going to say. You don't know exactly what your ad copy is going to look like every single time it appears, because you're leaving Google in charge of writing your ads basically on the fly each time an ad is shown. That's a particular problem if, like a lot of my clients, you work in financial services, because if you're a mortgage broker or an IFA or something like that, you are very often going to have to keep a very detailed record of all your adverts, of all your financial promotions, and your compliance people are going to want to be able to inspect that log of your ads. But of course, if you're not actually writing your own ads, if you're letting Google do it, you can never actually produce a definitive list of all the ads that you've had running. So what I recommend is that you create a responsive ad, because you have to create one to get past this stage. But then as soon as your campaign creation is finished, then at that point you should go back into the ad setup and create an expanded text ad, which is the kind of ad that I recommend you use, where you actually write the ad and it's fixed what it says. So I'll show you now how you would do that. So here is an ad group that already exists, and to create an expanded text ad in it, I click the plus button. As you'll see, it doesn't even put expanded text ad in the list of options, so I have to select responsive search ad. But then once that screen opens up, I've got the option over here to click switch back to text ads. And now I'm finally at the screen where I can create an expanded text ad, which will have 3 headlines, which I write myself. I know what they're always going to be, and 2 lines of description. And that's what I recommend you do, particularly, as I say, if you're in financial services, because then you are able to say it to your compliance people, this is exactly what my ads are saying. But also because I've found in a range of different industries that in tests I've done, the expanded text ads that you write yourself generally outperform the responsive search ads and get higher click-through rates. So there you have it. There are the 4 biggest pitfalls I think that new advertisers can very easily make. As I say, it's not your fault if you've done that. It's because Google makes it really easy for you to fall into those traps by making these recommendations, having these default settings which aren't necessarily in your best interest as an advertiser. If you found that useful, as I say, do subscribe to the channel so as you get more of this kind of content. And do also consider coming to the masterclass, the webinar that I run, where I go through step by step exactly how to set up your own Google Ads campaign for generating a regular flow of mortgage leads. And I'll put a link to that in the description. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.